Welcome to Global Gardens. In our time together each week, we're going to explore. We're going to think like scientists. We're going to look at the natural world around us, make tons of observations, have fun, not only learning about the world, but we're also going to use all of that to ask questions about ourselves and our communities and to have some peaceful moments together. The way we're going to start every one of our Global Gardens times is with our community circle. Community circle is just the way in Global Gardens that we come together as a group and breathe in. That means hold on and take into yourself anything that you want to hold on to. Positive, happy, great thoughts and memories. And breathing out anything that we don't want to hold on to anymore because it doesn't help us as people. So we're going to take some time together to take some deep breaths in and out. And as we do that, I want you to think about anything you want to let go of that is hard and anything you want to breathe in and hold on to that brings you a smile or brings you peace. So let's breathe in together, friends. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. So now that we've let go of anything that we didn't want holding on into our minds and in our hearts, and now that we've held on tight and brought in close anything positive, let's get started with our Global Gardens fun.
Have you ever noticed there are so many different colors of food? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple, and black, and white. But what's the point of eating food? Because it tastes good? Yes. Because it brings people together? Yes. Because it's fun to make? Yes. But the number one reason we have to eat food is to get energy.
Our bodies need energy to do everything, to move our muscles, to pump blood, to think and learn, to regulate our emotions, and even digesting food takes energy.
That's right. Am I the only one who this happens to? You're going about your day, pretty normal day. You start to feel a little cranky, a little sleepy or tired, a little draggy, and then before you know it, you're snapping at people and being grouchy. Then maybe you eat a little snack or drink some milk, and pretty soon you feel awesome again. Your body needed energy. There are lots of different foods and they all give us energy, but some foods do more for our bodies than others. Super sugary foods like soda or candy or cake give us energy fast because sugar is so easy for our bodies to use. The bad news is there isn't much else in there. There aren't a lot of nutrients. Nutrients is the word for a lot of different things that our bodies need to function and to be healthy. Things like vitamins, protein, fat, carbohydrates. There's a lot of different things, and we won't get into all of that today. But some foods have a lot of nutrients, some foods have a little bit, and some have almost none. So super sugary foods usually give us a lot of energy, but not a lot of nutrients. When we fill up on sugary foods, that's a lot of energy and not a lot of nutrients, our bodies think, awesome, I have all the energy I need. I'm getting what I need. When really, it's not getting what it needs. Nutrients. So what foods have a lot of nutrients? Well, lots of them. Usually, the more natural a food is, the more nutrients it has. This isn't always true, but it's a good guideline to follow. Natural foods usually have lots of good nutrients. And they can actually hint to us what kinds of nutrients are inside. How do they communicate this to us? Do they whisper it? Let's see. I'm not picking anything up. Foods don't whisper to us their nutrients. They actually tell us based on their color.
Colors signal to us a specific kind of nutrient called phytonutrients, which is a good substance in plants that help keep us healthy.
Red!
Red foods contain phytonutrients that help keep our hearts healthy and strong.
Orange!
Orange foods keep our eyes healthy.
Yellow.
Yellow foods help our immune system, and our immune system keeps us from getting sick and helps us get better when we are sick.
Green!
Green foods help strengthen our bones and teeth. And when we're kids and growing, we're building a lot of bone strength that will carry us through the rest of our whole lives. So green foods are important for everyone, but especially growing kids.
Blue and purple and black.
Blue, purple, and black foods help support our memory and learning.
And white.
White foods help keep our blood healthy. Blood carries oxygen from our lungs to the rest of our bodies.
Some people are scared of all kinds of sugar, but sugar's in lots of healthy foods as well as foods like candy and soda. Something like an apple has a lot of sugar, but it's healthy for us. There isn't as much sugar in an apple as, say, a candy bar, but it's still quite sweet. Some people are scared of fat in foods, but fat isn't a bad thing. We need healthy fats for our brains and bodies, especially when we're growing. Healthy fats are found in lots of foods like cheese and nuts. Sugar isn't always bad, and fat isn't always bad. What we don't want to do is eat foods where that's all it's offering our bodies. We want to eat foods that give our bodies more of the nutrients that it needs, as well as the energy. So how can we make sure that we're eating foods with lots of nutrients? Well, I'm glad you asked. A really easy way is to just try to eat the rainbow. Oh, cool. So for red, I could eat a Tootsie Pop. For orange, I could eat some Doritos. Wait. That's not what I meant. We would need to eat a rainbow of foods that grow that color. For example, red, orange, yellow, green, blue and purple and black, and white. We don't need to eat every single color every single day to be healthy, although it would be awesome if we could. Eating the rainbow just helps us make sure that we're getting a variety of foods, because with that comes a variety of nutrients our bodies need. So sure, we don't have to eat every color every day, but what if we could eat all the colors of the rainbow in one meal? Do you think we could do it? Well, we could make stir fry. You could get a lot of colors of vegetables in there. You could make a fruit salad or a smoothie. I have it. Follow me.
We'll make rainbow pizza. If you do much cooking, pretty quickly, you'll run into measuring spoons and measuring cups. What's the deal with these? They're all different sizes. There are different markings and letters on them. And there are fractions. It's madness. So let's talk about it. Back in the day, like 200 years ago, people didn't have special measuring spoons and measuring cups. They would just use the cups and spoons they had in their house. They would use teaspoons, which were typically used for stirring tea, and tablespoons, which were used to eat at the table. Then people started realizing everyone's measurements were different. People had different sizes of spoons, they had different sizes of cups, and people's recipes weren't really working. Some of the instructions would even say things like, stir till your arm gets tired. So then someone thought, what if we made a special set of spoons and cups that were all the same size, so that when I write down a tablespoon, you use the right amount of whatever ingredient? I did a little experiment and measured to see if my tablespoons are the same as a normal tablespoon, and you can see it's pretty close. I did the same experiment with a teaspoon, and mine were pretty accurate too. So if you don't have a set of measuring cups and spoons, you can use the spoons at your home. So these cups, what's this about? These are all based on the 1 cup measure. All the smaller ones are just fractions. So let's talk about fractions. Think of our cup like a pie that we're going to cut into a certain number of equal slices. The total number of parts becomes the bottom number on the fraction, called the denominator. And the top is however many parts you're going to use. So if I needed 1/4 of a cup, I would divide my cup pie into 4 and then take one of those parts, and that's 1/4 of a cup. I can do this with any of the fractions. If I need 1/2 cup, that's 1/2. So I would divide my cup into 2 equal pieces and just take 1. That's 1/2 cup. This got a lot easier when people made special cups for each of the fractions. So I can just use my 1/4 cup measure instead of having to figure out how much of this cup is a 1/4 cup. You'll use measuring cups, measuring spoons, and fractions a lot in cooking and especially baking, where it's really important to be precise. So keep practicing and it gets easier and easier. First, we make our crust. We're going to measure 4 cups of flour using this method of measurement called the spoon and level method. It's called this because you spoon the flour into your measuring cup and then you push off the extra to make sure that the top is level or even. If you don't want to make your own pizza crust, it is kind of a lot of work. You can buy a store-bought crust or use something like a tortilla or an English muffin or even a bagel. The reason we measure like that instead of like this, just scooping, is because you end up with a lot more flour when you scoop. So I actually weighed both cups, both measuring cups, and there's a 35-gram difference. This may not seem like a lot, but over the course of the recipe, it's a whole extra cup of flour, and that can throw off your pizza crust. So next we will measure out our other ingredients, salt and oil, and some water that just barely feels warm to your finger, and we'll mix our yeast in. While we let that yeast sit for a minute, we will mix together our flour, oil, and salt. Then we'll add in our yeast mixture. I always like to stir it up right before I pour it in and make sure I get everything out because the yeast is what will make our bread fluffy and chewy. Then we'll add almost a cup of water, not quite all the water, and then we mix. As you're mixing, just think about trying to get every bit of flour a little bit wet. So sometimes you'll mix and mix and mix and still have some of this dry, crumbly flour in the bottom. So you can add a tiny bit of water at a time until it comes together in one ball. Then we'll lightly flour a clean countertop. I recommend wiping down your counter before you start this. We'll push out our dough, and then my favorite part, kneading. So kneading the dough is really important to get it kind of stretchy and chewy. What we're trying to do is help gluten form in our bread. Gluten, like I said, is what makes bread and pasta kind of stretchy and chewy. And they're shaped kind of like little stretchy hooks, and we want to mix them so that the hooks kind of hook onto each other. So you can see I'm pushing, folding, and turning at every single time I push, and that is kneading. You don't just want to like touch the dough, like squish it. You really want to make sure you're moving and folding and rolling it around every single time. So 5 minutes later, here's what my dough looks like. It's pretty stretchy, but still tears very quickly. And so we want to get it to the point where when I stretch it like that, we could see through it and it doesn't tear. So it takes a long time and some endurance. If it feels like your dough is just not coming together after like 10 minutes, add a little bit of flour and keep kneading. So my dough ended up taking almost 15 minutes before it started to spring back when I poke it. That means it kind of fills in its spot. And look, we can see through it. I actually should have kept kneading a little bit more, but I was tired and excited about pizza. You can see it kind of springs back when I poke it. So now we will get our bowl that we mixed everything in, oil it up, oil up the dough ball, and let it rise. What's happening when we let it rise is that the yeast is eating some of the flour, and they're like little tiny microscopic creatures, and they're burping a bunch to puff up the dough and make it turn into bread. You can set your dough in a warm place if your kitchen is warm, but my kitchen was cold on this day, so I didn't turn my oven on, but I put some boiling water in it and set my dough in there. When you wash your hands, make sure you use a scrubby.
While we let that rise, let's talk toppings. Now, I know a lot of people who say they only like cheese pizza or they only like pepperoni, and I used to say the same thing until I started making my own pizza. You can use all kinds of crazy toppings, and with my special extra step, they somehow taste amazing. So, today we're going to be a little brave and definitely curious and try out some toppings that we may not normally love or we may not even think to put on pizza. We can be scientists not only in science class, but in the kitchen or anywhere. We'll do an experiment and see how it turns out. For our red topping, today we're going to use bell peppers and of course the tomato sauce, but you could also use tomatoes on top of the pizza. For orange and yellow, we're going to use bell peppers from that too. I found this cool mixed bag with all kinds of color. Believe it or not, I have had carrots on a pizza and it's surprisingly good. I think corn would be a really interesting yellow pizza topping as well. For green, we're going to mix some spinach into the sauce and put broccoli on top. In our food rainbow, blue and purple and black kind of all go together because they have similar vitamins. But we will use black olives, purple cabbage, and a little bit of red onion. We can't forget white. We'll be using fresh mushrooms and canned for a more affordable option. When it comes to chopping the vegetables and using a knife, this is one of those times where you have to get adult permission and have adult supervision the whole time. If your adult isn't comfortable with you using a sharp knife, you can either use a butter knife to chop vegetables or the adult can do the prep work. Kids can still take the lead on choosing ingredients and topping the pizza. Some cutting boards slide around a little bit, so to be extra safe, I wet a small towel, place it under my cutting board, and then it's super stable and doesn't slide around.
Now, some important things about being safe with knives. Sometimes it can be scary to see a sharp knife, but actually sharp knives are safer than dull knives because they cut where you expect them to cut, and you don't end up having to push hard and maybe slipping or things like that can get you cut. So a sharp knife is actually better. So when you're holding your knife, we don't want to be scared of our knife and hold it like this because that doesn't help us be in control of the knife. If you're using a knife, you're the boss. So we want to hold it with a good grip like this. So we're not like clutching it like this, but we want to just have a comfortable grip, but where we can fully control the knife. You should know that this top part of the knife is not sharp, so you can touch it and it is safe, but of course the blade is very sharp, so we want to keep our hands away from that at all times. When we're not using the knife, it's always on the board. So sometimes we get distracted and we want to point with our knife, or someone calls our name and we turn around with our knife, and that is not safe. So whenever we have a knife, we're either chopping or it's on the board. Of course, whichever hand you're not using to hold the knife will be holding the food. And this is the hand that's most at risk of being cut if you're not being safe. So I'll show you at first on something really easy to cut, which is a mushroom. So mushrooms are a little bit wobbly, and anything we cut, we don't want to cut it wobbly like that. Because as I'm cutting, if it's moving, then that means my hand is at risk of getting cut. So the first thing we want to do with something wobbly like this is cut a little bit off so that it's flat. So I'm just going to cut a little bit here so that now my mushroom has a flat surface and it won't wobble away. And I can still use this piece and cut it in half. Now I want to make sure that my fingers aren't out here like this, close to my blade, but they're tucked under like this. We call this the claw. So we want to our fingernails to be protecting the tips of our fingers. That's what they're there for, and that's how we're going to use them. So I will also keep the point of my knife on the board a lot, you'll see, because that helps me have a little bit more control of how thin I'm slicing or thick. So I'll come up to the vegetable, I'll keep the tip of the knife on the board and just bring it down. When people first start using knives, they'll oftentimes just chop and pull up, but and that works for some vegetables like mushrooms, but some vegetables, it's a little bit more difficult. So you can chop and slide your knife forward at the same time like this. So it's kind of more of a slicing motion, like a rocking back and forth. And if you feel like you have too much food piled up, you can just scrape your knife along. And if you have something stuck to your knife, you can push it, but always push from the top down and just push it off. We don't want to come at it like this. That's dangerous. Where's the blade pointing? It's pointing at my body. That's no good. The blade should always be away from me and down. So I will continue to cut until it's a little too thin for me to feel safe like this. But look, I've been making flat edges this whole time. So I can just turn it over and keep cutting. So see how it's a little bit small again? I can just turn it again. And then when it gets this small, I don't even have to use my hand. I can keep my hand far away. So if I want to chop these smaller, I can. I can just kind of stack them back up, keep my hand away, run my knife through it. And I think I'm happy with that. So now I'll chop my other mushroom. So I like to just pile up my ingredients on my cutting board because that means fewer dirty dishes, but you can also get a big bowl to move your food off the cutting board so you have more workspace. So here I have my pepper. Notice it's wobbly. So the first thing I'm gonna do is cut a flat spot. And I think I will go this way, but I don't really feel comfortable doing this. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put my knife down gently. I'm gonna grab it either side and very slowly slice. So there you go. I have my flat ends. Peppers have seeds inside and this little white part called the membrane. And seeds on sweet peppers like bell peppers don't hurt. They're not hot really. So we can actually eat them. They don't hurt us. But they are a little chewy. They don't really cook to become any softer. So lots of people take them out. So you can just get in there and rip it out with your hands. No need for the knife. And then I'll get the rest of the seeds off here. So now I have my flat edge. And I think I'm gonna hold it by this little end because I can get a pretty good grip there with my claw. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna push and rock. And then when the piece is too small, I'm just gonna chop it just like that. And I actually like my pieces like this in little smiley faces or moons. But I will show you another thing you can do if you like your pepper pieces a little bit chopped, more chopped. So if you have sliced your food one time and you're like, that's really not big enough, but I don't really feel great about doing this, you can actually, to get a little bit more control, put your hand up here and rest it just like this. And then move through the food like this, chopping. You'll see chefs do this sometimes. And there you go. And then remember to push off my food. Always go from the top down. We don't want to hurt ourselves. All right, let's get going. If you have a bigger pepper or your pepper is super curved like this and it seems a little wobbly, you can just smash it flat like this and then you may get a better grip. If you want to be really resourceful, save some of these pepper seeds and plant them in your garden in the spring when it gets warm. Now, onions can be really tricky to cut because it's a sphere. There isn't an easy place to cut it, a flat spot, but you can still do it. So we just need to hold it very, very carefully with a very firm claw. And we take off the tiniest slice, just like that. Now, it's not nearly as wobbly. Then you can hold it at the fattest part, cut off each end, the root part and the stem part. Then use one of these flat ends or this one, either one, to cut it in half. So I like to place my knife and again hold it in the middle and just push straight down. So now I can peel off the little papery peel because that part doesn't really get soft and it's not really good to eat. And then you can slice or chop. So I usually start with slicing it. I just get a really good grip, position my knife, and slice, slice, slice. Then when it gets too small, you know what to do. Just flip it over. And again, flip it over. And there you go. If you like your onions smaller, which most people do, pile it back up, make some space on your cutting board, and then you can just run your knife through it like we did with the mushroom. And then just go till it's small enough for you.
Now, my secret method for making all vegetables tastier, that isn't really a secret. It's roasting them in the oven. So we can push all our vegetables that we want to go on our pizza onto a baking sheet, add a little bit of oil, not too much, a little bit of salt, and you can always put your salt in your hand if it comes out too fast and then sprinkle it like this. So we'll salt our vegetables, we'll smush it all around with clean hands, and then spread it out into about one layer so they aren't all just piled up together. Then we will bake it in a 400-degree oven for about 10 minutes.
All right, now that we have our vegetables ready, let's head back to the dough.
We'll put a bit more flour on our clean countertop and add our dough. You can divide it into half if you want it 2 normal-sized pizzas, or like I'm doing, you can get a smaller piece for a personal pizza. Roll it a little bit in flour, but not too much. Look how squishy it is. It's almost like slime now. So we're done kneading. Now we want to be stretching it into our pizza shape. So just stretch, stretch, stretch. Be gentle because we don't want to add holes, but you can do that cool knuckle thing that pizza chefs do. You can try to toss it in the air, but don't let it land on the ground. And I might actually set it aside for a minute because sometimes it stretches better with a little bit of a rest. And we're back, and I'll be stretching again. It seems like it's not shrinking up quite as much. If you happen to get a hole like this, it's no big deal. Just pinch it back together, and it should be just fine. Now we can grab our baking sheet and put it on there. Make sure you do this part before adding any sauce or toppings. My baking sheet isn't very pretty, but that's because I use it so much. I'm gonna do sauce first, but you can do this in any order you feel like. Just make sure you use a little bit less sauce than you might think. It just seems like if you use as much as you think, it's too much. Next, we'll add mozzarella cheese and our roasted veggies. So we can add them to the top. Believe it or not, this really changed them.
You can even add some Italian seasoning or oregano, and we're ready to go in the oven. And here's our pizza. You can tell it's done when it's not super floppy if you lift it. Yum! So you see, healthy eating is all about balance. We shouldn't feel bad for eating cake or Takis or soda. Those are all delicious treats. But what we should do is aim to love and care for our bodies that do so much for us. They allow us to run, hug, climb, and play, think, be creative. And one way we show our bodies appreciation and care is by giving them the things they need, nutrients. We should aim to love and care for our bodies that do so much for us. They allow us to think and dream, hug, climb and play, lift heavy things, be creative and tackle hard problems. They do a lot. One way that we can show our bodies care and appreciation is by giving it the nutrients it needs to grow and thrive. So have some cake, but put some veggies in your spaghetti too. Showing our bodies love is showing ourselves love, and each of us deserves that love and care. Eating healthy foods is one way that we take care of the health of our bodies or our physical health. But what are some ways that we take care of our emotional health or our mental health? There are lots of different things we do to take care of our emotions, whether it be hanging out with friends and people who make us feel good, seeing a therapist, taking alone time, or doing stuff you like, whether it be sports or theater or drawing. There are lots of ways that we can take care of our emotional health, but it's really important that we do it, just as important as taking care of our physical health. So I hope today you eat some healthy foods and do something that's good for your emotions.